Chapter 26. The office they entered was luxurious. The first thing Tessa saw was an entire wall taken up with plaques and photos, all very tastefully displayed. Walking past, she saw that the metal on the plaques appeared to be solid gold. The photos were of presidents and generals and other famous people that even she recognized. Below her feet, the carpet was thick and soft. It led up to an imposing desk in the center of a cluster of heavy leather chairs. A man with perfect posture sat behind the desk. He looked like he might be older than Tessa's parents, maybe 50, maybe even 60. But in Tessa's experience, 50 and 60-year-olds looked flabby and sloppy and defeated, their eyes hazy with alcohol or drugs and despair. This man's green eyes were sharp and clear and seemed to see even what Tessa and Gideon and Deck were thinking. Had salt and pepper hair, cropped so precisely that Tessa suspected he got it cut whenever it grew more than a millimeter too long, and his white uniform looked even more pristine than Gideon's had back in the Waterford City Auditorium. The collar alone was starched and ironed to such an exact edge that it probably could be used as a weapon. Sit, the man said, nodding toward the leather chairs in front of the desk. Tessa wanted to object. She and Gideon and Deck were all covered in grease and dirt and sweat. None of them belonged on fancy leather. But Gideon and Dex sat down without saying anything, so Tessa followed. The man, General Kantoff, Tessa realized, leaned forward and lifted a lid from a glass jar at the edge of his desk. Cigar? He asked Gideon. Gideon looked at the general. You offered me a cigar the last time I was in your office, after I killed all those people, Gideon said, in a voice that he seemed to be struggling to control. I haven't killed anyone this time. I violated the military code sections 45, 832, and 368, but I didn't kill anyone. The general watched Gideon for a moment. Then he put the lid back on the glass jar. I'll take that as a no, the general said. He sat back in his chair. Gideon had his head down, waiting. When nobody said anything, he looked up again. Didn't you hear me? Gideon asked. I violated 3 sections of the military code. I just confessed. Any one of those should be grounds for a court martial. I am aware, the general said dryly, of your indiscretions. Indiscretions? Gideon asked. Those are crimes. Crimes that I alone committed. They had nothing to do with it. He waved his arm wildly toward Tessa and Dex, seated on either side of him. Well, that's settled, Dex said. How about if Tessa and I just show ourselves out? Nobody answered her, and she made no move to leave. Tessa thought, guess we should just take that as a no, too. The general had his eyes fixed on Gideon. Lieutenant Pilot Thrall is a very sick young man, the general said speculatively. Sick? Tessa echoed in surprise. I thought he was supposed to be a hero. That's what everyone said. That's what the military said. It startled her to hear her own voice. After everything that had happened, everything she'd found out, everything she'd witnessed with her own eyes and ears, did she think she could still believe in Gideon as a hero? If the general intoned in his most solemn voice, yes, yes, Gideon is a hero, would she automatically agree? Would she think that whatever he did was right just because he was the one saying it? The general didn't say that Gideon was a hero. He gave a sigh and murmured, ah, yes, the heroism factor. You, Miss Stilfen, have hit upon the crux of our dilemma. Gideon made a small, strangled noise deep in his throat. The general shifted the focus of his gaze to Tessa. As you undoubtedly realize, Miss Stilfen, people have certain expectations for their heroes, the general said. When we anoint someone with that title, we have to, let's say, keep up the image. We have to keep a close watch over how people see their heroes. A close watch, Tessa thought. She remembered way back when she'd gone to see Gideon at his mother's apartment, how he kept insisting that he was being watched. Someone had been watching him, or watching the apartment anyway. The military hadn't wanted him sneaking out and doing anything to hurt his heroic image, which was exactly what he'd done. If anybody else ever found out, if the general kept watching Tessa, almost as if he thought he could hypnotize her, almost as if he thought he had the power to make her shut up, to make her forget everything she'd seen. But do you think Gideon's a hero or not? Tessa asked, persisting in spite of herself. Because somehow this mattered. This was something she cared about. The general let out another heavy sigh. War, he said, is a complicated thing. From a distance, it looks black and white. Us and them, life and death, heroes and enemies. But up close, the boundaries are never so clearly drawn. There's a reason the hallways of our headquarters are painted gray. He chuckled, and Tessa thought that he had probably used that line before. I killed 1,632 people, Gideon said. That was evil, but you said it was good. Then I went to apologize. That was good, but you're going to say it was wrong. You'll say it was a crime. You'll punish me for it. He called it an indiscretion, not a crime, Deck hissed at him. He's giving you a way out. Take it. The general and Gideon both ignored her. The general shifted in his chair. Then he leaned forward, peering straight into Tessa's eyes again. As long as there has been war, there have been problems with, shall we call it battle fatigue, as our ancestors did? The general asked. Shell shock? Post traumatic stress disorder? You see such horrible things in war, it twists the mind. I didn't see anything but a computer screen, Gideon said. I sat in a comfortable chair. I was the one who did the horrible things. The general kept watching Tessa. It was like he hadn't even heard Gideon. When we switched to fighting with drone planes piloted from remote locations miles from the war zone, we thought that would diminish the psychological toll on our young warriors, the general continued. But somehow the psychological scars only got worse. Because it wasn't kill or be killed anymore, Gideon said. The enemy and I weren't in equal danger. I was killing while I stirred my coffee. You had to, the general thundered, and for a moment it seemed as though he was answering Tessa's question from long ago, when Gideon first told her what he had done. Wasn't it necessary? The general's face was turning red now. You were protecting your entire country. You were protecting people like her. You're a hero for her. The general raised his arm and pointed directly at Tessa. Tessa shrank in her seat, wanting to disappear again. The general was saying Gideon was supposed to be a hero for her. He wasn't saying that he thought Gideon was heroic, just that Tessa and people like her were supposed to think so. But Tessa wasn't the same girl who'd stood in the Waterford City Auditorium, dazzled just by the sight of Gideon. She wasn't so sure she needed a hero like Gideon anymore. I was in the war zone myself, Tessa said in a small voice. It got stronger with every word. I didn't mean to go there, but I did. I saw what we're fighting over, and there's nothing there. Why are we fighting over nothing?